Good morning, Stephanie.
Hey, good morning, Robert. How are you?
Doing great, thank you. So, when we were both at SAP Sapphire, we started to have some great conversations being immersed in all that data and thinking about digital. And so, like you and I discussed, here we are, we're going to record that conversation because I think it was really interesting, really valuable. So let's dive right in.
Sounds good.
Terrific. So, what we kind of started off on was this notion of how reality gets distorted. We both work with mid-sized and growing companies. And when companies really start to grow fast, at the upper levels, it's hard to tell what's really happening. I know for you at customer experience, what's really happening there. And I'm just thinking of one client in particular who, as they grew, they try to look into situations, the data wasn't there. They try to ask the people down in the organization, hey, do you understand the numbers? They're like, not really, they're making things up. And it was a mess. They really couldn't get at those things. And it kind of became a distortion field because people were making decisions based on things that weren't necessarily real. Of course, half of those decisions were wrong. And this is just a huge challenge and a huge problem. And the faster you're growing, the worse it gets. And gosh, when you're growing, you need it to be really real. So that's kind of the problem that we were talking about and working our way through. And so, Stephanie, I'd love to get inside your head. And what does that look like? What do you see from a customer experience standpoint?
Well, you just kind of hit on it. The best perspective to start answering that question is to start by looking at that employee experience. Because just to complement your example, one mid-sized finance company that I know experienced some recent rapid growth under tremendous staffing and resource constraints. And in that instance, that growth created a sense of being overwhelmed and overworked, which we've all felt at one time or another. But, consider this, what employees feel, customers feel. So that's going to have a ripple impact out to your customers. And there can be some very complicated things, just continually complicating the matter. Like if your measures aren't telling you the true story of the experience customers are having with your organization, just like you just mentioned.
Right. So you were saying some great things about how do you deal with that pain, right? What are some practical steps that a company can do to start to fix that problem?
Well, and I would love to hear your experience on this too, because it's so great to compare notes. I've seen some very wonderful small and mid-sized companies get very focused on the sales numbers, but they don't measure or monitor how long customers are having to wait for service, how many complaints they're getting, how frequently customers have to attempt to get service before they actually get service, or in general, how easy it is to do business with them. The sales numbers can be telling you the story about how things are today, and your CX data could be telling you the story of how things are today, but also telling you how things are going to be tomorrow. So my point is here, measuring and monitoring the right things with respect to experience can help you keep distortion to a minimum. And there are some techniques to make sure that you're doing that, but I'd love to kind of compare notes with you as we continue. What's your experience?
Right. So I'm coming up fairly similar. One is that data capture, and that can be challenging in a growing mid-sized organization to get granular enough data. But part of that systems, part of that's discipline. So if you don't have the data, you've got no way of capturing it, then you're kind of stuck. So that's one really important piece. I think another part is the cadence of looking at that data. Sometimes so much data is created, no one's really looking at it. So, hey, what should we look at? Is that weekly? Is that daily? Is that monthly data? So that we're really crisp and clear about it. And I think the third thing is you've got to have predetermined targets, what we want that data to say, and failure points. So we say below this or outside this range, we're going to stop and we're going to go fix it and make it a priority. I think those are a couple of approaches that would really help.
I'm right there with you. And I think that you have to create organizational alignment around your customers from day one. Data is one way to do that. There are other ways as well. This is a daily walking of the walk and a talking of the talk in my experience. And it's something that you really can't skip on. I do, as the same as you, highly recommend governance practices. In this context, just quite simply, it's just a way of democratizing the data that you have, that you're confident in. And I think every company struggles with data. We're swimming in it now, and it can be difficult. I don't think I've ever encountered a company that really hasn't had, or a government agency that hasn't had trouble with making sure that there's quality behind that data. But governance in this context, just making sure that there's a structure and a process and that rhythm and cadence for ensuring that all of the company's silos are on the same sheet of music and understanding the customer's experiences. And in my experience, governance is how you go from having data to being a data-driven or a data-informed organization. It's the secret sauce for staying in lockstep with customers' experiences. But it doesn't happen overnight. It is a daily walking of the walk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me drill into that. Let's assume that a company has plenty of data, right? Is there anything specific organizationally that companies can do to focus in on the right data that really impacts the customer experience? Like, how do you get granular on that and pick out the right piece for that company?
And to your point, there's so much data, and how do you pick what matters? And I think that it's really important to make sure, and I'd love to hear your views on this too. I think it's really important to make sure that you don't pluck your measures and your standards out of thin air. Make sure that it rolls up to your strategic plan. For example, if you have a strategic plan that includes a goal to improve the ease of doing business for customers, what does that mean? In one past instance that I've worked on, it meant a fast rate of service to customers. So we had a governance process in place to measure and monitor processing times or customer wait times. And as we assembled those multidisciplinary teams of people around that data, we were able to identify those systemic issues. But it is a regular rhythm and cadence. You're going to need a meeting facilitator. You're going to need a secretariat, a regular meeting place and time. These things don't just happen. You do have to put the work in around them, but it's work that matters, and it's work that's definitely worth doing if you want to stay in touch with what your customers are experiencing with your organization.
I couldn't agree more. And I'll take that down one notch in terms of specifics. So most of our clients will have sort of a weekly operations meeting, and they have a set of metrics and things that they're looking at. But a lot of those meetings are about how are we going to get next week accomplished? What are the pressure points? Where we see the biggest gap is when you get the management team identifying monthly check-in points. And so we've got a tool called the one-page business plan that we really like. It's literally one page, but it's a web portal. And companies that use it well start off with a one-page plan for the company. And there's 5 elements to it, right? There's the vision for the company, there's the mission, there's key strategies for the company, and then most granular, there's KPIs, and there's specific projects or action plans. And so, but having one for the company at midsize isn't enough. We then tier that out, and on that same portal, you can see the 5 or 7 people that report to the CEO. Each one of them have their one-page plan. So if it's manufacturing, it's manufacturing's vision, it's manufacturing's mission, manufacturing's KPIs, right, and manufacturing's key projects. And as midsize grows, there may be another tier below that, say at the director level. And if you construct these well, and they have to be constructed as a set, as a cascading set, you end up with very specific measures. It's written down, it's in one place, it's very simple. Too much complexity is our enemy here. And then every single month, just like you said, there's a meeting, it's always on the books. It's a very quick report out around the table, right? Everyone says, here's where I'm at. Someone keeps a list of the problem areas. Hey, we've got to work on this and this and this. And then the back half of that meeting is actually problem solving. But, this as an idea is nothing new, but high performing mid-sized companies that do it actually do it every single month with discipline. And that's what really drives results.
I agree. I think, we've talked about this even as recently as Sapphire last week, as you were mentioning before, that it's not so much always just about the data on paper, but what you do with it. And there are so many ways to do things with data, and taking action or being inspired. It sounds like the tool that you're talking about inspires action. It's designed to inspire action. And that's what we would hope that companies would want to do.
Absolutely. Stephanie, this has been fun. We'll have to do it again.